Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Boston-based saxophonist, flautist, and composer Ken Field of JazzBoston. We talked to him about a free live virtual performance on Friday, April the 30th at 8 p.m. from the acoustically acclaimed GBH Fraser Performance Studio. The event will feature the Jazz World Trio, which is a group of 3 international artists, each with a strong tie to Boston. He talks about this event, the state of jazz and COVID today, hope for the future, along with a little bit more. Enjoy.
Appreciate you taking a minute out for the show.
Of course.
I guess what really brings us together here is this special event, and I want to kind of delve into it with you a little bit here and kind of get some background and then kind of peel back the layers from there. Talk to me a little bit about the big event and how it's going to take place. I know there's some wonderful musicians involved. Just kind of give me a little bit of an inverted pyramid, and then we can kind of peel it back from there.
What's happening is we're celebrating International Jazz Day in Boston with a live streaming concert from the studios at GBH Radio and Television in Boston, Fraser Performance Studio, which is an amazing room, a very coveted place to record for musicians, for jazz and classical musicians to record, and also just a beautiful setup for doing video streaming from. And it's taking place on, as I said, International Jazz Day, April 30th, Friday night at 8 p.m., and it's a free concert we're providing to the community. We have a trio, international trio with Guillermo Nohechewicz on drums. He's Argentinian. Great bass player Bruno Rehberg from Sweden. The pianist is Witness Matlu, who is originally from Johannesburg, South Africa. And they're all quite acclaimed musicians in their own right. They're all Boston-based, and they're putting together an amazing hour-long concert that people can have access to for free that evening. And then there will be access after that, but we don't know yet. So we really want people to tune in on April 30th, and they can get to that from the website that I imagine you can help them find, but they can go to the WGBH.org website to find that event. And this is the first in a series of streaming concerts that JazzBoston, which is the organization that I now lead, JazzBoston.org. It's an organization that was set up about 15 years ago to advocate for the Boston area jazz community, the community of musicians, of jazz audiences, of jazz venues and presenters, and of jazz media. So we advocate for all of them, and one of the things that happened a number of years ago was that GBH, which had a pretty solid set of jazz programs in their schedule, scaled back on their jazz programming. It was part of a general movement in the NPR and public radio area to move to more news and talk, and GBH did that as well. There was kind of a very significant uproar in the jazz community in Boston when that happened, and what we're doing now is trying to turn that ship around. And in fact, the people at GBH now are very interested in helping to bring back jazz to GBH, which would be a major good thing for the jazz community to have a greater jazz presence on that major station. We've initiated a series of concerts. This is the kickoff, again on April 30th, International Jazz Day. We will have another concert at the end of June with another great ensemble. I'm not quite ready to announce it yet, but and we have a bunch of musicians who are very anxious to participate in this series, which we're calling JazzNow, Jazz and then capital N, capital O, capital W, JazzNow.
Isn't it mind-blowing to you to think, if we go back a year ago and think about everything shutting down and no one knew how this was going to transpire, the fact that we're still doing virtual, but there's a level of adaptation that we've all obviously gone through.
Yeah, well, mind-blowing is a great word for it because, who knew, who even thought that it would continue that long, that it would have that major an impact on all of our lives, on how we do so many of the things that we do, not just in the music scene and in the I'm a musician myself. My life has been significantly impacted in that sense, but every other aspect of everybody's lives, including, loss of lives and illness, and loss of income. So, it's mind-blowing. What I've been trying to do is figure out ways of making it work. Taking advantage of the situation, I guess, the cards that we've been dealt as a world. And streaming concerts, there's some positives to them, some very significant positives. Everybody gets a front row seat. You can view it from wherever you are. You don't have to leave the house. You can view it with great sound and great visuals, great video, and anybody anywhere in the world can attend. For example, for this concert for International Jazz Day, family in Argentina are going to be watching, are going to be there. And so, it's not the same as being in person, but there are some positives that I think we should keep in mind and be appreciative of. I recorded a solo album of layered saxophone music that I did all by myself during isolation with my looping pedals. So there's things you can do in this new world, and hopefully the world will be opening up again really soon. I think it's important to stay positive and to keep in mind what you can do, and even that there might be some benefits to doing it in new ways.
The one thing that I've thought about from the beginning of this pandemic is that all the artists that have been affected, and they've been affected adversely. I mean, it's like sports has opened up, and there's been things that have happened in different arenas, but artists overall, especially musicians, have been kind of held at bay. So my question to you is, as we head into the biggest celebration of jazz, what do you see as being significant and special about this International Jazz Day in 2021?
Jazz is an American art form, an art form, a musical form that came out of the African American community, and it's important for us to recognize and appreciate that fact, that this is something that was given to the world by the African American community that created it, in New Orleans and elsewhere. I think it's great to recognize that this art form has spread worldwide and has become a major important style of music, and a unique style of music, a style of music that focuses on individual spontaneous creativity, on improvisation, on collaboration, on spontaneous group improvisation, group collaboration. Those aspects to this music are in many ways very unique amongst creative work. The fact that you're composing in real time is a lesson, a life lesson in some cases, because we create our lives in real time. And so I think the fact that this music has spread worldwide and continues to thrive worldwide, and in fact, in my opinion, is undergoing a renaissance of creative approaches to jazz, to big tent jazz. I think it's really encouraging. It's really valuable. It's really unique, and I'm going to continue to do what we can with JazzBoston here in Boston, but to spread the word and encourage the community.
So, as you've touched on, the world of jazz has gone through a high level of adaptation, whether people have had to pick up tech skills, production skills, different things, different dissemination methods. How do you believe that the world of jazz is going to emerge stronger as we kind of get back to some level of live performance and the life that we all knew before returning?
I can't predict. Who knows? That's the beauty of it, really. Things will happen the way they'll happen. So I'm not going to predict what's going to happen. But I will say that, as I've said a minute ago, because jazz is an improvisational art form, people who are jazz artists are adept at adapting. I kind of like that. I'm going to use that. And so, when you're playing jazz, you're responding in the moment to what's happening or what's just happened, and you create a path forward in the music. And I think that there's a very reasonable parallel between that and what you do in terms of your career or your abilities to perform, you adapt. You see where you're at, you create a path forward. And I think that's one thing that jazz artists are good at, and I think they will continue to be good at that because they have a lot of practice, creating a path forward. And their brains are wired that way. So I think that whatever happens, whether we get back to live performance and maybe we get back to some hybrid where there's live performance with streams so that the world can watch at the same time, or whether we actually, who knows, maybe the pandemic is going to keep going with variants and all, and we'll have to stay isolated. But I think the jazz world will continue to adapt and to respond to the situation however it develops.
So when we do actually return to live music and get together again, both audience and musicians, what do you hope we all realize about the power of live music when we get back to it?
I'm going to make a distinction between live music and in-person music because there's been a lot of live music. There's been a lot of opportunities to hear streaming live music, music that's happening right at the moment. But in-person music is so powerful, and when we get back to that, we will see the communication that's so important between the musicians and the audiences that happens in real time. For a year now, when musicians have been able to play together in the same room, they've been performing for an audience of themselves, really. They've been responding to their own playing just within their group. And, technologically, some musicians have adapted some online tools, Jamulus, for example, which allows people to play together remotely with each person in their own home. I tried it out a couple of weeks ago with a group that was jamming in Germany, and it was amazingly great. I didn't notice any significant delay, which just totally shocked me, knowing what I know about the internet. But so I think there has been some of that, and people have appreciated the opportunities. But there's nothing like being in the same room at the same time with other musicians and with an audience. So people will be celebrating that ability to communicate in person in real time. I think there's going to be a kind of a renaissance in performance. The audiences are dying to go out and hear music live in person. And so it's going to be quite a celebration, I think, when really we can do it.
Wonderful. This presentation is going to be a celebration, as a lot of these have been over this time. So I appreciate you, Ken, taking a minute to talk about this. I'm looking forward to getting it out to my listeners, and hopefully everybody tunes in and enjoys and celebrates the day.
Yeah, well, that's great. Thank you so much for taking an interest, Joe. And if people want to learn more, they can easily go to jazzboston.org. They can join if they're in Boston area. Join for free at jazzboston.org. But the information about the concert is right there on our front page. So that might be the easiest way to get hooked up with that. Thanks again, Joe.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Boston, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Ken for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.